We were talking with Nate in Rochester, and Nate, thank you so much for your patience, and we appreciate the fact that you were willing to stay on. And I'll just kind of hand it over to you and Stephanie, and the two of you can continue with this great conversation.
Great, Nate. You know, just as I was thinking about kind of what we already discussed, it sounds like we both agree that the act of abortion will not undo the injustice of rape, nor will it take the memories of the trauma away. And it also sounds like we agree that it's not fair that the child get the death penalty. So the question then is, will it be difficult to carry through with the pregnancy? Absolutely. There aren't words to describe how difficult. Do we need to support the woman and the child conceived in rape? Wholeheartedly, yes. My question is, though, again, may we kill an innocent child because of the father's crime? What do you think?
I think that to directly answer your question, no. However, I think that your definition of child is variable. I think that I don't consider something that physically requires another being to exist a child. I consider that a fetus, embryo. It's a different classification of being to me.
Okay, and so maybe then that is the crux of the issue, because it sounds like even with the example that we both can agree on, even coming out of Ohio with that Ariel who kept these three women captive and tortured them, we both can agree that the 8-year-old, if that's the age of the child, but this 8-year-old conceived through rape may not be killed because she's a human. And so it sounds to me then that you're calling into question what the preborn are because they're in their mom's bodies. So I guess what I'm wondering is, when did that 8-year-old's life begin?
I realize that this is kind of a flexible point to say because it depends very much on scientific advancement, but the age of viability.
Okay, so let's take the age of viability. Now, there's some debate. People are saying between, 20 to 24 weeks, babies, can survive out of the womb. But if let's just pick 24 weeks, okay? Let's just say 24 weeks. That implies that we've been counting time for how many weeks, if we say 24 weeks? How long have we been clocking time? How many weeks?
6 months?
Yeah, 6 months, or I kind of gave it away, but also 24 weeks, right? So if we talk about 24 weeks, we're implying something happened 24 weeks ago that was pretty significant enough for us to consider we should press start on the clock and watch time go on. So wouldn't it make sense if someone's 24 weeks old that their life began 24 weeks ago at fertilization?
No, there's still opportunity for miscarriage.
Oh, and is there not opportunity for death after birth as well?
Yeah, but again, I'm not dependent on anything else. I'm not physically hooked up to anything else. If you want to talk about euthanasia as well or care about that, I'll have the same arguments, and I'm on the euthanasia side of it.
Right. I thought our question was not whether someone is dependent, but whether someone is human. Is our right to life grounded in our dependency or grounded in our humanity?
I'm basing my definition of humanity on dependence.
Okay, so then how would you respond to someone who said, because an infant cannot live on her own, she's fully dependent on someone to care for her, we may kill the infant? What would you say in response to someone who says that?
I'm not defining dependence that strictly.
And they would say, I am. Tell me why I'm wrong.
Well, that's an argument that we can have, but I don't know the person who wants to kill babies.
Or do you? See, the only difference between the line you've drawn and the imaginary person I just created was one of age. So
Well,
why
then-
should our right to life be why should our right to life be based on how old we are, Nate?
Well, what side of the birth control debate are you on? Because if you want to have this sort of discussion, we can go right back to the ejaculation.
Well, I think there's a difference there. I mean, certainly the Catholic Church teaches that there are the usage of contraception is immoral, but not because it kills, in the case of condoms, for example, but because it separates the unitive from the procreative, the very nature of the sexual act. That's a different argument, though, from what I'm proposing right now, which is that once life has begun, is it wrong to end that life? So this isn't a question about what is the nature of the sexual act. It's a question of when the sexual act brings about life, do we believe all humans are equal? So do you believe all humans are equal?
Depending on how you define human.
Well, if someone has two human parents, will it follow that they themselves are human?
At a point.
Okay, so two humans, would you agree, can only produce another human?
Yes, I'll agree to that.
Okay, so then we have three options for when that human can begin its life. Before fertilization, at fertilization, or after fertilization. Would you agree that we have one of those three options at our disposal?
Correct.
Okay, so let's take before. Let's take the sperm. Will the sperm in the man's body ever become an adult, ever become a baby, and then an adult?
No. Independently, no.
Right, correct. And the eggs in my body, if there's no sperm in my body, will my eggs ever grow into a baby and then an adult?
Independently, no.
Okay, correct. So therefore, option one is out of the question. You and I can both agree that life cannot begin before fertilization. So let's consider for a moment.
Conception and after.
Sorry, what was that?
I said, so we're left with conception and after.
Correct, exactly. So we've got two options. So let's consider the at conception. The genetic information which makes Nate Nate and Stephanie Stephanie, is that determined at fertilization?
Yeah.
Okay. And the one-celled embryo, will it grow into then 2 cells, 4 cells, 8, 16, and so forth?
Barring complication, yes.
Okay, agreed. There could always be complications. So then will the one-celled embryo in the right environment grow into a baby and then an adult?
Yes.
After fertilization, then, don't we just have an older version of the same individual whose life began at conception?
That's like making an argument that a colony of bacteria should be treated as sentient because it could eventually evolve to that point.
Okay, that's a good point. And I think what comes to mind is, why can't a cell of bacteria, let's say, think, versus why can't a one-celled human embryo think? Why can't a bacteria think?
Lack of requisite organs.
Okay, and it's not within its nature to have those requisite organs. But would you say it is within human nature to be thinking creatures?
Yes, but I'd also say it's within all things' nature to improve themselves.
And we could have that discussion, but in terms of the entity before us or an individual before us in that moment for that generation, it's not within the nature of a bacteria to think. It is within the nature of a human to think. The bacteria cannot think because of what it is. The one-celled human embryo cannot think because of how old it is. See, by virtue of having human parents, which you agreed the embryo has, it therefore follows that that offspring of the humans has the same nature and simply can't think because of how old it is. So if you say we may kill the one-celled human embryo, it would follow that you'd be guilty of age discrimination.
Okay.
So
and Nate and Stephanie, I think we do need to leave it there and go to break. But Nate, we really appreciate your call. This has been a fascinating conversation. And we hope that you'll keep listening and perhaps call again. Stephanie will be on, I think, later on this month, in fact. And Nate, please know that we will keep you in our prayers as well.